polls open across Canada, where a snap election is being held to determine who will become the country's next prime minister. It comes just 6 weeks after Mark Carney was sworn in as prime minister, replacing his party colleague, Justin Trudeau. The two clear front runners are the Liberal Party, led by Carney, who have been in power for a decade, and the Conservative Party, led by Pierre Poilievre. President Trump has weighed in on the election via his social media account, repeating his calls for the nation to become the 51st U.S. state. Poilievre responded to Trump with a post asking the U.S. president to stay out of their politics. Anna Micka is a human resource expert and a development analyst. She joins us from Ontario, Canada, to discuss the ongoing election and the Trump's tariff. Professor Yomi Fawehinmi, a foreign affairs analyst, also joins in. Good to see you both, and thank you for giving us your time. Anna, I will start with you. What's your assessment of the voting process so far compared to previous elections?
Well, I think that the voting process has shown some improvements in accessibility and efficiency compared to previous election. However, I do believe that issues such as voter engagement, regional disparities, and overall trust in the system still need some serious attention. And while the mechanics have become somewhat more streamlined, the broader challenge is still restoring that public confidence and participation.
Prof, how do you think the election outcome will impact the country's economic policies, particularly in relation to U.S. face-off? I don't know, what of the candidates are going to be the best option to protect Canadian interests?
Interesting, and thanks for the question and having me too. I think to follow up on what Anna said, the issue in this election is the person that is not on the ballot box, and that's Donald Trump, the president of the USA. The biggest challenge, it seems as if the most important thing to the average Canadian voter, including myself, I voted a couple of hours back, is the question of the belief that there's a need for someone that can stand up to President Donald Trump. And that's what seems to be giving the Liberal candidates a bigger chance compared to Poilievre, because of the fact that Poilievre had not clearly distanced himself from Donald Trump and his rhetorics a long time back. It's in the recent times he's trying to show that difference. So it seems as if what Canadians are voting for is who is going to stand up to Donald Trump and who is going to ensure that our economy stands very strong. And based on people's perception, and also based on the fact that Carney, the leader of the Liberal Party, has extensive experience. He has been the central bank governor in the US, in Canada, and also in the UK. So people believe he will do a great job with the economy because of his experience. He also has experience in consulting, managing of investment firms up and down. So there seems to be like a perception that this man is going to make the economy work and he's going to stand up to Donald Trump. So I think that is the major thing in this election, and that's what likely going to determine the eventual prime minister.
Anna, talk to us about the U.S. tariff war that's going on. How is it expected to influence Canadian voters' decision in this election?
Well, I would like to speak to it from perspective of business owners that we are working with, and the tariff disputes have definitely underscored the vulnerability of Canadian economy to American political shifts, right? So for many voters, and among those that we are speaking to as business owners, particularly those in manufacturing, agriculture, export-driven sectors, these tensions have brought economic security to forefront. So I do believe that voters will be looking for a strong, credible leadership on those trade policies, and that may factor these realities into their choices right now, favoring candidates who appear capable of balancing those firm negotiations with diplomatic pragmatism, I think.
Prof, talk to us about this repetition from Trump about making Canada the 51st U.S. state. Is that even a consideration for voters here? Is it something that shows some concern for the Canadian sovereignty?
Well, I mean, thanks. Great question. This morning, President Trump wrote on his Truth Central social media handle about this question of these 25 states. What's clear is that it's something that he says all the time. Some people believe he's just joking. Some people he's trolling. There was a conversation by one of the premiers of the provinces that said his assessment that he really means it. But the question is that it's not going to happen because of the fact that there are no procedural system that is going to make it to happen. Let's also remember that there have been some provinces in Canada that voted to see whether they wanted to become part of the USA, and in all the elections they have not won. Let's also remember that Quebec, one of the provinces, has also voted to leave Canada, and I think on 2 occasions and lost. So Canadians want their country to be their country. Nobody's going to offer to go join the 51 state and to join the USA and became the 54 state, if you allow me to say that. The President Donald Trump has said it many times, but like many things he says, there's really no strategy, no coherent plan to make it happen. So if he really wants the US, Canada to be the 54 state, so how? I mean, he has not mentioned, okay, this is the procedure, this is the method, this is the timeline. He just says it, and in my opinion, I think he says this to just troll. I also think he says this to also influence the election.
It's just talk in your view, I guess. Let's bring in Anna again and just ask, how is the outcome of this election likely to impact Canada's trade relationship with other countries in light of the face-off with the United States?
Well, I think the election outcome will influence whether Canada aggressively pursues the trade diversification or doubles down on repairing and maintaining its U.S. ties, right? And I think that's what we're all anxiously waiting for. And a government focused on expanding international trade partnership will most likely prioritize agreements with Europe, Asia, emerging markets to buffer against that U.S. volatility and uncertainty. A strained relationship with the U.S., however, could probably lead to significant short-term economic turbulence, and that will impact, and we see that impacts a lot of things, from the supply chain to investment confidence. So managing those dynamics carefully probably will be vital to the long-term stability.
All right, Prof, just one more before we go. I want to pick on your Nigerian part to ask you this question. We know that Canada has 6 different time zones. So opening and closing times are going to be different. But what is most important is that polls door has not closed. Counting has already begun for mail-in ballots from Canadians who voted from abroad. This is according to update from Elections Canada. I want your thoughts on what you've seen there and its applicability here in Nigeria for diaspora voting.
Well, I mean, one of the things, as I think Anna's mentioned some of you have asked another question. One of the major differences in this election is the number of people that did early voting. There were quite a lot of early voters. We have never had that number in terms of people that voted before today. So, which is something, and I think this is something that we can adopt in Nigeria. I wish I had the opportunity to try to compare my experience voting in Nigeria versus voting here, just for us to see how different things are and why we don't have any excuse why we cannot improve our elections in Nigeria and make it become more seamless, easier, and more accessible. So what I noticed is quite a lot of changes have happened also in the way Canadians voted. Many people are now voting earlier than the day. On the day of the vote itself, there are fewer people voting. People are also voting from outside Canada, which I think Nigeria has talked about many times about this question of diaspora voting. In my opinion, I think before we get to diaspora voting is for us to first allow people to vote early. So this idea of everybody must come on a Saturday. If you notice, today is Monday. Today is Monday and we're holding an election and nobody has closed any road. Schools are open. I voted in the school hall. The children were in class. They were learning. Nothing's changed. They were able to continue their life while we voted. I think that's part of what we need to start to think about if we want to start to learn from that in Nigeria.
I guess we still have a long way to go. Thank you very much for speaking with us, Anna. It's been a pleasure having you tonight.
Thank you.